Bueno. Recently, the Senate failed to take up the Department of Defense authorization bill, which was the first hurdle in moving a vote on the DREAM Act. While this delay leaves the prospects uncertain for action on the DREAM Act, it does open an opportunity to foster dialogue among pro-migrant rights groups so that hopes and aspirations of undocumented youth and students are not limited to serving in the armed forces alone. Through our decades of youth and immigration rights work, the American Friends Service Committee has historically supported equal rights and access to educational opportunities for all. We have accompanied communities as they demand that the universal human right to education is protected. We have advocated for children, youth, and adults, irrespective of their immigration status in the United States, to have equal access to education in order to guarantee the social and economic viability of the individual, the community, and society in general. AFSC, like much of the nation, has been inspired by the willingness of undocumented students to ensure that the universal human right to education is guaranteed, even when it might threaten their ability to stay in this country. It is evident that the actions of these undocumented youth have helped to positively impact the national debate on immigration and education. We continue to stand with migrant and refugee communities in calling for immigration policies that protect human rights, keep families together, demilitarize communities, and respect the quality of life for residents who live along the U.S.-Mexico border. But Congress continues to stall on passing humane immigration policy. The Senate's inaction on the DREAM Act is another indicator of the great need for decisive leadership in Congress to address one of our nation's urgent human rights issues, immigration. AFSC reiterates its grave concern with the inclusion of military service in the DREAM Act and the exclusion of community service and vocational paths as viable alternatives for undocumented youth. As an organization with strong community relationships and decades of work in support of youth and immigrant rights, as well as a track record of bearing witness to the horrors of armed conflict across our planet, AFSC rejects the inclusion of military service in any legislation that addresses the ability of immigrant youth to receive equal educational access, academic resources, and external opportunities. Given the evidence of pervasive targeted military recruitment among youth of color and the many subsequent negative effects on their lives and their communities, AFSC deplores the use of a de facto poverty draft. The youth of low-income marginalized communities targeted by this recruiting often see no other options than the military, thus they succumb to the poverty draft. Undocumented youth seeking legal permanent residency could be misled into believing they would only have to serve for 2 years, as is implied by the current form of the DREAM Act. In fact, the current enlistment agreements, as already been stated, contain no such provision. Instead, the commitment is for 8 years. Communities and the choices of youth are protected. AFSC will continue to advocate for legislation that includes the following. Number 1, provisions that provide both a robust civilian community service path and a solid vocational path to legalization. 2, access for undocumented students to federal financial aid for college, including loans and grants. 3, provisions that assure the protection of legal status for youth who for reasons of conscience object to war and are no longer able to serve in the armed forces. We call on all like-minded people everywhere to help ensure the dreams of migrant youth and higher education and legal status become a reality. Thank you.
Up next, we're going to have Abel from the Party for Socialism and Liberation to share some words.
Thank you. My name is Abel. I'm with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and we stand in solidarity with the Colectivo Zapatista and their stance on the militarization of the DREAM Act. Due to a well-funded anti-immigrant campaign, some may feel that undocumented students do not deserve to receive an education, and that these students are taking resources that should go to U.S. citizens. The PSL understands that the real drain on the economy is not undocumented students, but the twisted priorities of the government. The President, Vice President, and his advisors, including retired generals, all knew that the war in Afghanistan could not be won and still sent 30,000 troops in March of 2009 and another 30,000 troops 7 months later. As legislators that support the way the current DREAM Act want to coerce more people into an unjust war. War is business, and many politicians in Washington benefit from this war. The highest ranking officials have connections to war profiteering. President Obama's National Security Advisor, General James L. Jones, also serves on the board of directors for Boeing. In 2009, Boeing received $20.9 billion in Pentagon contracts. Boeing spent millions on lobbying members of Congress to make this happen. Deputy Secretary of Defense William Lynn was once a lobbyist for Raytheon, who is a defense contractor that brings in $25 billion a year, making Patriot and Tomahawk missiles for the Army and the Navy. In comparison to what it costs to build one missile, sending someone who wants to get an education to college is nothing. It costs up approximately $10,000 to go to SDSU for one semester, and that's including food and housing and books. As we enter the 10th year of the war in Afghanistan, we ask, how much is this invasion going to cost in human lives and suffering? Not just in the Middle East, but here in the United States as well. The funding for education has continued to decline while making students pay more in student fees. The people of Afghanistan and Iraq will continue to resist the U.S. military presence in their country, and the President and Congress will continue to seek ways to send more young men and women to die in an unjust war, including using people as cannon fodder. They seek to use a DREAM Act as a desperate measure to enlist more students and young people into the military. Even U.S. General Petraeus has stated that this war could go on for the rest of our lives and our kids' lives. The PSL supports removing the military component of the DREAM Act and an end to all wars and occupation. Thank you.
Thank you all also to the rest of the speakers and the supporters that we have here. To finish off, again, we want to take this opportunity to do a call out to the community, to other organizations, to join us next Friday, October 29th at Late Mi Corazón, in our film screening Cine en el Barrio, to have a critical dialogue on the militarization of the DREAM Act. Queremos hacer un llamado a la comunidad y a otras organizaciones que nos acompañen el próximo viernes 29 de octubre para tener un diálogo, una discusión crítica sobre la militarización del Acta del Sueño, DREAM Act. Muchas gracias.